officer at Lula, been around for 5 years, and really work quite closely with a number of our customers and business owners. And then today we're joined by John. John is our head of engineering. He's going to kind of maybe pull the curtain back on a few kind of insights and some knowledge, all to do with cyber threats, specifically targeting SMEs. John's got a long history in security type businesses. And I mean, I'll let him introduce himself and give a little bit of his background as well. So John, please, if you could let us know a little bit about yourself.
Hi, thanks, Thomas. Appreciate the intro. Yeah, so hi, John. As Thomas said, I'm the head of engineering here at Lula. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I thoroughly believe security is one of the main pillars of any business. From my perspective, I've been in the industry a while. I've been building authentication and secure payment systems for the better half of 2 decades. And I'm bringing that to this conversation. Obviously, Thomas did allude to it, but we don't want to plug too much. So we're just going to give a little bit of a conversation about the industry in general. And then afterwards, we can have a nice Q&A. Just a reminder, please just stay muted, and during the Q&A, we really want you to have some good questions. Yeah, so I mean, let's Thomas, if you could just go to the first slide. So I mean, if we look at life in South Africa, I mean, we are very aware of security. We were very aware of physical security. We put up walls. We have CCTV. We have cameras at our homes. They're AI backed to find intruders. We have security guards. We really have this defense in depth approach. We must have that because of like the constant evolving landscape, the constant evolving criminals that we have to deal with. Our criminals are highly motivated, and they play by a completely different rule set to what we have to adhere to. If you effectively look at the way that we approach life, we have got the security onion, where there's various different layers of security. And I think that's important for us. That said, we must always be aware and vigilant. And looking at our physical security, we do put an extreme amount of time and effort into guarding our boundaries of our businesses. So that said, we must do exactly the same for the software, the cybersecurity landscape. Yeah, and just to put this in context as well and bring it home a little, I mean, this is it's not an existential threat. In the last month, 2 of my family members have been victim. The first member had some credit cards stolen. Luckily, that's very lightweight if we're talking about any kind of exploits, and so it's very targeted. And she was luckily reimbursed, so it's not that bad. Also had a family member that was a victim of some invoice fraud. And this is a little bit more serious. If you don't know what invoice fraud is, effectively, as a business owner, you would elicit a service from some provider. And effectively, after that service, maybe, you will get some strongly worded email, effectively either giving the context of the service that was provided, together with information that they really shouldn't have. They'll provide you with some emotive content, and they'll give you some banking details to transfer the funds because they haven't been paid, or maybe something a little bit more serious. I mean, this is the reality. This happens out there, and this should cause a little bit of anxiety. The question is, how did that criminal get access to that data? Is it your accounts that have been compromised? Is it some of your devices? Is it some of your infrastructure? Could it be with a service provider? And that's just not an easy thing to investigate. There's like the onion approach. There's many entry doors and entry points within your system. Luckily, my family member did stay calm. They didn't get emotional. They actually handled it like a champ. But the point being, the risks are real, and a weak cybersecurity posture could really expose your business. Yeah.
So
Just
John, just on that, I mean, you've shared some stories about family members being, being victims of, basically cyber attacks or digital attacks online. So speaking a little bit to some of the information that we've put up here, I think something that's super important for an SME, like a business owner in South Africa, and maybe they're not the owner of a big corporate, but somebody that's just got, what they would consider a good business in South Africa, to understand that they're not immune to these attacks. And in fact, we've got quite, we've seen some research that shows that SMEs in particular are targeted or are easier targets than bigger businesses, just because, one, there's more of them. There just are more SME businesses in South Africa than there are big businesses. And two, the fact that SMEs are probably an easier target sometimes than bigger businesses. So something that I mean, I wanted to share here. Just, I think we'll unpack a couple of different types of attacks later in the webinar. But for a business owner to understand the fact that you are actually your business's online kind of digital interfaces, whether it's a bank or a website or whatever else you might have, your payment gateways, are actually desirable kind of targets for online criminals and attackers. And something that surprised me quite a lot was just we on the slide here, we've got something about ransomware attacks. And so we'll unpack exactly what that is. But years and years ago, I was at a business that actually suffered from a ransomware attack. And that's basically where the criminals come in and they either try and block you from being able to access your databases or your data. And so they maybe they encrypt all the data and you can no longer access your own databases, or they try and do that or steal that information. So transfer out the information and try and sell you back either the access to your information or that information itself. And I think something that's important to understand here is, like, people don't talk about this. It's one of those things you don't want to say, I was the victim of like a digital attack. And you don't want to say that about your business, because you don't want to tell people that that something's happened in your business. But just understanding the impact of this is pretty important. It's millions and millions of rands, and in US dollar terms, we've got what the average cost to recover is from a ransomware attack as an SME. And the fact that many SMEs go out of business after a ransomware attack in particular. So it's not the most prevalent attack type, but just highlighting here, as John was saying, this is not some fuzzy thing that may never happen to you. The chances are almost every business and every individual is going to face some sort of cyber attack. That's just the nature of the world we live in today. So yeah, I mean, I thought just important to highlight that and really drive that point home that John was making there.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned that people necessarily don't want to talk about it, but it should actually be talked about. If we look at some of the major organizations from an authentication perspective out there, Okta, Auth0, they've all been compromised, but it's the way that they recover and the way that they communicate exactly how they were dealing with it and how proactive they're going to be in future. That says a lot about the business, and it also says a lot about the continuity of that business as well. And creating that awareness is also extremely important. Yeah. Yeah. So maybe just from a small business perspective, these are some of the threats that are out there that are a little bit more prevalent. These are not all of them, but there are a few of them. So if we look at the first three, they do necessarily target your employees. So they're very much a targeted attack. And you'll find a blend of them. They usually go together. There's some form of blended attack usually with those. These days, you'll find that they are also AI assisted, which is a really scary prospect. Yeah, but let's quickly run through them. If you look at the business email compromise, that would be very similar to the scenario that I portrayed with my family member, where there was a spoofed account that elicited some form of payment. In what they also could do, then could add to that, is they could probably impersonate an executive, and also probably use some AI to do that. I mean, we've all seen a lot of the images and videos flying around. To be able to copy myself, to be able to create a duplication of myself, it's in anybody's hands. And the scary part of AI is that it is also now accessible to everyone. Can definitely guarantee you not just the ability to create an individual, but also to duplicate an individual. So your executive, your ex-CEO is very, very possible. I'm sure even with just this video, we would be able to utilize that to deploy Thomas and John clones, which is scary, but it's the reality and something that we have to deal with. So if we look at phishing, we all know what that is. That would be a malicious payload being delivered mainly via email. I'm sure we've all received some of those, and we might all know about it, but are we communicating to our staff about how to identify and what to do when we receive them? That's something we just need to be vocal about in our businesses. If we look at the social engineering, that we've seen even this last week, that on the cybersecurity hub, there was a notification out for police impersonations. So specifically where somebody would target you, build a social profile on you with the available data that's out there, have some form of half-truth about you, create a fake warrant of arrest, call you multiple times. I'm not quite sure how that would work out, but then effectively try to elicit a bribe, maybe making the fake warrants of arrest disappear. Again, AI, it's a scary prospect. So the last two, I mean, Thomas spoke quite well about ransomware. Effectively, that would be an actor accessing your environment, moving horizontally, decrypting or encrypting your data and probably exfiltrating that. So the extortion part is a real threat. They would either want to sell you back your data or just leak it to the third party. But I mean, even if you do pay the ransom, there's no, your data is your IP. So that data that's effectively been stolen, there's no guarantee to say that it hasn't even in any case been sold off to a third party. So yeah, those are the real threats out there. Yeah, thanks, Thomas.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, just from my side, I kind of think, or like to think that I keep quite up to date with this sort of thing, and that phishing. I'm going to be aware of a phishing attack or something like that, and generally, like I see a lot of that stuff coming through my way, but rarely do I ever click on it. And I must say, the quality of some of the phishing attacks I've seen, it's kind of scary. It's hard to differentiate from the real thing. So interestingly enough, I got a DocuSign or one of these legal agreement mails sent where you have to sign like a digital contract, and this thing had brilliant information. Like it looked so legit, to the point where I actually did click on it, and then figured out like shortly after clicking on it, oh no, this is actually a phishing attack. And so I think, to your point of recovery, when we talk about recovery as well, it's fine, maybe for a ransomware attack, it might be this big response that you need, or data theft. But even when we're talking about something like a phishing attack and how you recover from that and the things that you need to do, it's not these big crazy things that you might have to do. It can just be like, just one, being aware as soon as it happens, and two, trying to figure out how you mitigate whatever like exposure you had at that point in time. How do you kind of not let it go any further, or reverse course a little bit? And then just flagging on the social engineering side, there's both physical world and online social engineering taking place. And social media in particular is a very scary place that criminals use to great effect. As John was saying, like with AI, I mean, if you think about what information is probably available about you online, particularly on social media, and then once they have access maybe to some of your more sensitive financial apps or anything like that, you think about AI and what can be achieved there, and then you just think about like how motivated criminals are, and probably how industrious they are themselves to earn money. This is the kind of that social engineering front is it's incredible what's actually out there, and just being aware of these things is super important.
Yeah, I mean, looking at your effective digital footprint, I mean, even not just from a criminal perspective, I mean, companies out there are creating sales profiles so that they can target you from a commercial perspective. So just always be aware of what you're placing out there, and effectively, what your digital footprint is. I think it's just good to be aware of that, So now probably we're coming to the more positive aspect of it. And if we look at I mean, these are fundamental concepts. I mean, you have to go and apply this to your own business. I'm an engineer at heart, so in software engineering, we have this concept of threat modeling. Effectively, when you build a system, you look at all the actors playing a role on it. You look at all the interfaces where data is flowing. You look at where the processes are running, and you look at the security posture of what needs to be applied on that system. And similarly, you should look at your business, look at who effectively is answering emails, who's sending data where, who is interfacing with vendors, who effectively has the roles to be able to action a payment. And these are critical functions that you just have to map out and make sure that those are focused on. But at the end of the day, coming back to these items, passwords is a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. I love talking about them, but I'm going to keep this concise. If we look at passwords, NIST has the last NIST publication has effectively said that instead of making arbitrary rules for passwords, have a excessively long password, don't reuse passwords. So please keep unique passwords for every single system. In a business, it's great if you can have single sign-on as well. Otherwise, just use a password manager. There's many of them out there. OnePass, LastPass, Bitwarden is a fantastic password manager. From my personal perspective, I also use it. It's got in case of death, user flow, which is something you don't want to think about, which you should think about, which is important. It's important for the ones that we leave behind. MFA, it's not an option. It should be a default. It should be a must. In fact, MFA is so prevalent these days that we're moving into the world of passwordless. Both Apple and Google and various other organizations are backing passwordless, which is fantastic. So it masquerades in the form of passkeys. These are fantastic. Effectively, they're hardware backed, they're phishing resistant, and they're synchronized across your devices. So if you sign on to an account, effectively that passkey is synchronized across both your tablet, laptop, and mobile phone, which is fantastic. And that's obviously biometrically backed, which is amazing. What can you do from your side? You could probably you should check your accounts if you haven't done so. There's a fantastic service called Have I Been Owned, Pwned, PWNED, Pwned. So that is a service provided by Troy Hunt. He's a industry expert. It's a great service that he's providing. So you can effectively look at all the data leaks via your own view. So with your own account, it would effectively tell you where you've been compromised and what form of data has been compromised. I think that's key. Without that knowledge, you'll effectively not be armed. But at least then you'll be able to know, should I change a password? Should I enable 2FA? You know, what is my compromised landscape? And then you can at least act on that. Training, sure. Thomas talked about it just now, where I think even if you find a phishing mail or something like that, it's an opportunity to communicate. It's an opportunity within your business to be vocal. Awareness is key here. Sure, there's lots of software out there that can effectively do cybersecurity training, which is great. But I mean, yeah, you need to make sure that all the individuals in your organization that they're aware of account takeover, that they know how to identify malicious links, that know how to identify just malicious activity in the organization. If we're looking at that previous, let's talk about whaling or invoice fraud, or CEO fraud, it's sometimes called. How do I identify that? Why is this person that just wants to elicit a normal payment becoming emotional, trying to pull on my heartstrings? You need to be aware of those things. It's excessively difficult, especially in the moment. But yeah, that's the reality that we have to deal with. We talked about data leakage, having regular backups, cloud backups, ensuring that they're encrypted, ensuring that those backups are usable. I think that's excessively important. Also making sure that even if we're talking about data, just limiting access. So what does your marketing team need access to? What does your sales team need access to? What just being able to orchestrate that. If we look at an absolute must these days, every device should have antivirus. If we look at it from a compliance perspective, that is also something you need to be aware of, that security updates and software updates are actually done. And that, that's just not on devices. We're talking about routers. We're talking about any access point into your organization. It's critically important. But that's it. I mean, the fact that you're all here does mean that you are part of the solution. But yeah, even that's it. I mean, when last have you communicated within your organization about cybersecurity or about just creating awareness? There is a cybersecurity hub, which is it's effectively a forum that public forum where different organizations also publish notes, and it's great to use as that entry point to create awareness in your organization. I did talk about that police impersonation a little while ago, and that effectively is also published there. And if you spend some time on that, you'll definitely get enough ammo to talk in your organization and just create awareness. Yeah. So we said we're not going to plug too much, but we've gotten to that point. I think we're in a unique opportunity to just do a little bit of a demo of how as well. But we also just want to talk about how we protect our customers. We've just launched our mobile application. For us, that's key to deliver a second channel, not just a web channel, a channel where we enable biometrics, where we can enable device-backed biometrics. Mobile applications, they're delivered from the App Store, they're hardened, and we have a lot more access to communicate to that mobile device and vice versa. So we'll see a lot of security functionality being delivered in the next quarter and beyond. And I'm very, very excited about this. This is effectively should become our primary channel. and really keen on some of the functionalities that we are going to deploy out there. We'll have the ability to just keep our customers alert and communicate to them in real time, which is key as well. The second functionality, payments control. We did talk about one or two threats. We talked about invoice fraud. We talked about social engineering of your staff. And payments control is a great way to effectively counter that. It effectively adds that positive friction to a payments authentication step. What's great about that is any secondary user that effectively does, publish a payment for or submit a payment for authentication, there's a second step of actioning and authenticating that. It's great. So yeah, hopefully that would be the end of whaling fraud for your business. And then if we talk, let's probably also just stop at cards. We are a MasterCard issuer, so that's fantastic. The card rails have been around and they are secure and tested. They've weathered the threat landscape. They've weathered a lot of storms. One of the newer endeavors from them are virtual cards. Please use them in your personal and business life. You should be able to create as many virtual cards as you like, even for one-time transactions for various digital wallets. And those virtual cards are also backed by the same 3D secure protection as your other cards. Luckily in South Africa and in Europe, but in South Africa, we have 3D secure mandated, unlike other territories in the world. So what that effectively means, if we're doing an authentication on an e-commerce site or similar, we know that with that 3D secure flow, we can, trust that that's effectively a valid merchant. We can trust that the payment is actually, fraud protected, and I think it's a very secure flow, which is something that we luckily have come, just to. It's just part and parcel of normal South African e-commerce behavior, which is fantastic. It's not so in the rest of the world, so that's really fantastic. Yeah, if we look at tokenization, that's a functionality that hopefully we're going to bring live in the next quarter or so, and that's really great that we can, meet our customers at their point of commerce. So effectively be where they want to transact. Those are also tokenized cards, so it doesn't represent your actual cards, and also very safe and secure method of actually of performing